Building a championship-caliber defense in today's modern NFL is basically a massive, high-stakes game of financial gymnastics. You have a hard salary cap, you have superstar egos, and you have front offices forced into making incredibly complex, sometimes entirely ruthless roster decisions just to field a competitive team. You are watching NFL Nexus. If you want the absolute most in-depth cinematic breakdowns of the stories that are actively shaping the league, make sure to hit subscribe, like this explainer, drop your opinion down in the comments, and support the channel by becoming a member. Now let's dive right in, because today we are pulling back the curtain on a staggering, unprecedented financial contrast happening right now inside the Seattle Seahawks defensive backfield. This is a roster move that has the entire league watching closely, not just because of the pure talent involved, but because of the massive, looming uncertainty shadowing the whole operation.
What we are looking at here is a jaw-dropping juxtaposition in team building. It's the ultimate contrast. On one side of the locker room, you have a player who just secured a historic, multi-generational payout. And literally right next to him, you have another guy taking a highly controversial, rock-bottom bargain deal. Listen, when you construct a 53-man roster, every single dollar you spend is a statement of priority. You absolutely have to pay your foundational stars. But doing so means you are inevitably forced to find value, sometimes extreme, incredibly uncomfortable value, in the absolute margins of the league. The Seahawks have built a secondary that perfectly illustrates these two wild extremes of NFL economics. One guy has ultimate security, the other is quite literally fighting for his career, his freedom, and his future in the league. So, let's start by looking at the massive, bank-breaking reward the Seahawks just handed out to anchor their defense.
When an NFL front office spots a true shut-down talent in the secondary, the prevailing logic around the league is simple. Lock them down immediately before the market price explodes. In a pass-heavy league where quarterbacks are throwing for 4,000 yards in their sleep, a premier defensive back is arguably the second most valuable piece on the chessboard, and Seattle knows this firsthand. So, Devin Witherspoon just inked a $132 million contract extension. That makes him the highest-paid cornerback in the entire history of the NFL. Let that number really sink in for a second. $132 million. This isn't just a big contract. This is a profound declaration by the Seattle Seahawks. It signifies that they view Witherspoon as the foundational pillar of their franchise's future. Committing this much capital completely restricts what the team can do elsewhere. But when you have a transcendent talent who can literally erase half the field, you empty the vault.
Obviously, Witherspoon expressed his immense gratitude to management for securing his future. He stepped up to the mic and said, "It feels good. Long time coming. Shout out to John and all the people upstairs for getting it done." That's General Manager John Schneider he's thanking there. Witherspoon has successfully reached the absolute summit of his profession, financially. But you know how the NFL works. The phrase, highest paid, is always temporary. With the salary cap rising every single year, this historic deal will eventually get passed up by guys like Christian Gonzalez, who are just waiting in the wings for their new extensions. Yet, for Seattle, securing Witherspoon right now means they have their lockdown CB1 locked in for their immediate championship window.
But every massive action in the salary cap era has an equal and opposite reaction. And right next to this historic investment is a high-risk, low-cost acquisition that has everyone talking.
Because Seattle committed $132 million to Witherspoon, the financial pie for the rest of the secondary shrinks dramatically. You simply cannot pay everyone top-tier money. Look at this depth chart. Look at how Terrion Arnold, who is fully capable of playing nickel and outside, slots in right behind Witherspoon and Josh Jobe. You've got Witherspoon, the $132 million anchor. You've got Josh Jobe, a reliable CB2 who signed a very respectable 3-year, $24 million deal. That is a solid middle-class NFL contract. And then, at CB3, you have Terrion Arnold. Arnold is a former first-round talent. This is a guy with the physical tools to be a CB1 on half the rosters in this league. Yet, here he is sitting at CB3, awaiting potential discipline from the league office. The raw talent in this cornerback room is undeniable, but the context of how it was assembled, completely unprecedented. The Seahawks signed Arnold to a 1-year prove-it deal worth around just $1 million. That is a drastic, massive pay cut for a former first-round talent. In the NFL, $1 million is essentially the veteran minimum. It is the absolute floor. For a player of Arnold's pedigree to be playing for $1 million, it is a stark indicator of just how significantly his off-field situation has tanked his professional standing. This is a purely transactional, high-reward, zero-risk financial move by the Seahawks. Think about it. If Arnold can't play, or if the media circus becomes too much, the team cuts him and loses almost nothing against their salary cap. But if he does take the field, they're getting premium, first-round talent for absolute pennies on the dollar. And make no mistake about his abilities when he actually steps onto the gridiron. Arnold built a very solid, highly respected resume over his 3 seasons with the Detroit Lions. He established himself as a legitimate regular in their secondary. We're talking 22 starts in the NFL. He recorded 18 pass deflections. And look, in the NFL, breaking up 18 passes is essentially the equivalent of ending 18 offensive drives. He also racked up 91 total tackles. These are absolutely not the statistics of a fringe practice squad player holding on to a roster spot. These are the numbers of a legitimate starting caliber defensive back. He was a real cornerstone of what Detroit was trying to build defensively.
However, his stint in Detroit ended incredibly abruptly when very serious felony robbery and kidnapping charges surfaced against him down in Tampa, Florida. This is exactly where this story shifts from a standard football analysis into a deeply serious, real-world legal reality. These are not minor infractions. These are severe felony charges. The moment this news broke, Arnold's entire trajectory in Detroit was over. The Lions immediately moved on, and Arnold found his entire football career hanging by a thread while he navigates the criminal justice system. We are reporting strictly on the facts of the timeline here, but you cannot overstate the gravity of these charges. They instantly, fundamentally altered his life and his standing within the National Football League.
Which brings us to the most crucial point. Why take the risk? Why would the Seahawks front office take a chance on a player facing such severe legal trouble?
Generally speaking, NFL teams are incredibly risk-averse when it comes to massive media distractions. For Seattle to actually pull the trigger and offer this contract, they needed trusted, powerful voices advocating fiercely on Arnold's behalf. Enter franchise legend Richard Sherman. Sherman revealed he actually consulted with the Seahawks on this move. He bluntly acknowledged the serious charges, but he also loudly vouched for Arnold's high-level talent. Now, when Richard Sherman speaks in Seattle, especially about cornerbacks, the front office listens. He's the architect of the greatest secondary of the modern era. On his podcast, Sherman didn't sugarcoat anything. He noted Arnold faces very serious charges, but his ultimate takeaway was incredibly telling. If Seattle is signing him, their internal vetting process must have given them a serious level of comfort regarding his current status.
Head coach Mike Macdonald came right out and echoed this exact sentiment. He emphasized that the team had a great visit with Arnold and that they deeply trust the people who have stayed in his corner. Macdonald pointed out that the team actually knew Arnold really well from his 2024 pre-draft evaluation. And here's the thing about the NFL. When a player falls into legal trouble, front offices watch very closely to see who abandons them and who actually stands by them. Macdonald specifically noted that the Seahawks respect the folks who have remained in Arnold's corner throughout this whole ordeal. It's a highly calculated gamble on character evaluation. They are relying heavily on the word of trusted scouts, former coaches, and legendary alumni.
And this slide brilliantly illustrates just how much internal connections matter in this league. Current Seahawks quarterback Jalen Milroe actually played with Arnold at Alabama from 2021 to 2023. In the NFL, locker room chemistry is incredibly fragile. When you bring in a controversial signing, you desperately need established leaders inside the building who can bridge the gap. Jalen Milroe is exactly that bridge. Having shared a collegiate locker room with Arnold under the intense, high-stakes pressure cooker of Nick Saban's Alabama program, Milroe knows exactly who Arnold is when the cameras are off. This pre-existing relationship gives the Seahawks a massive, crucial layer of internal accountability.
Milroe publicly praised Arnold's commitment and how much he cares for his teammates, fully believing he will just slide right into Seattle's culture. Speaking to the media, Milroe emphasized Arnold's dedication and his deep care for the locker room. He noted that the culture they are building in Seattle mirrors the highly structured, hyper-competitive environment they survived together in college. For a head coach like Mike Macdonald, hearing your franchise quarterback publicly, enthusiastically back a controversial signing like this, it's vital. It sends a clear signal to the rest of the 53-man roster. Arnold is to be welcomed and integrated on a football level, while the legal system handles the rest off the field.
But despite these ringing endorsements from inside the building, Arnold's immediate future remains completely, entirely out of his control.
Football games are played on Sundays, right? But Arnold's season is going to be heavily dictated by what happens in a courtroom on a weekday. Let's look at this timeline because it builds toward a massive, critical juncture, an in-person status and disposition hearing down in Florida on October 5th. Just look at the rapid progression here. From a highly scouted pre-draft prospect in 2024 to a solid starter for the Lions, straight into a shocking arrest in 2026. Then, a swift fall from grace leading to an August signing for the absolute veteran minimum in Seattle. All of this culminates on October 5th. This isn't a quick Zoom call, it's an in-person hearing in Tampa. Arnold has to physically leave the team facility, fly across the country to Florida, and stand before a judge. And the timing of this could not possibly be more dramatic.
Crucially, that court date lands right around NFL Week 5, the very morning after the Seahawks play the Los Angeles Chargers. Think about the logistics of this for a second. The Seahawks are going to play a brutal, physical, exhausting NFL game on October 4th against the Chargers. The very next morning at 9 a.m., Arnold has to be standing in a courtroom on the opposite side of the country. This presents a massive, potentially season-altering distraction for the player, the coaching staff, and the front office. Every single beat reporter in Seattle is going to be asking about it. The defense is going to be trying to prepare for Week 6 without even knowing if their key rotational corner will be walking back through the facility doors or if his season is effectively over right then and there.
While Arnold can technically practice and travel while out on bond, the NFL could choose to place him on the commissioner's exempt list at literally any moment. This is the ultimate wild card in the NFL rulebook. The commissioner's exempt list is essentially Roger Goodell's administrative leave. It is entirely at the commissioner's discretion. The league does not need to wait for a guilty verdict to use it. If the NFL decides today that Arnold's presence on the field is detrimental to the Shield while these felony charges are pending, they can place him on this list. They could do it tomorrow. They could do it an hour before kickoff. It renders a player completely ineligible to practice, play, or even set foot inside the team facility. It is a massive sword hanging over the Seahawks' entire defensive strategy.
Which leaves us with the ultimate burning question as the September 9th opener against the Patriots approaches. Will the league actually allow this controversial $1 million bargain to play? The Seahawks have assembled a truly fascinating secondary. You have the $132 million man, Devin Witherspoon, holding down one side of the field, and you have the ultimate wild card in Terrion Arnold waiting in the wings. It's a brilliant, incredibly high-stakes gamble by John Schneider, but it's a gamble where the final roll of the dice belongs to the NFL commissioner. Will Arnold take the field, or will Seattle's $1 million bet be benched by the league office? We are going to find out very soon. Thank you so much for watching NFL Nexus. If you want more deep dives into the stories shaping the league, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, drop your thoughts on this secondary in the comments, and become a member to support the channel. We will see you next time.